help me reach 1,000 subscribers. Please like the video and share your thoughts on the video. Your feedback helps make the contents better. Now let's get to the story. I stared at the turkey on my plate, suddenly feeling like I understood exactly how it felt. Gutted and roasted. My mother's words kept echoing in my head. He only has one birthday a year. Yeah, well, I only had one spine that needed surgery before it curved so badly I'd look like a question mark by 30. But apparently that was less important than my brother's 21st birthday bash. My name is Marcus Webb. I'm 19 years old, and I've been living with scoliosis since I was 14. It's not the kind that kills you, just the kind that makes every day feel like you're carrying a bag of rocks on one shoulder while someone ties your spine into a pretzel. For the last 2 years, it's gotten worse. Much worse. The doctor said I needed corrective surgery before I turned 20, or I'd be dealing with chronic pain for the rest of my life. Maybe even nerve damage. Small stuff, really. Nothing compared to a birthday party. I lived in a small suburb outside of Cleveland, Ohio, in one of those cookie-cutter houses where everyone pretends everything is perfect. My dad, Richard, worked as a regional manager for some industrial supply company. He made decent money, not rich, but comfortable. My mom, Patricia, was a part-time real estate agent who spent most of her time on Facebook documenting our perfect family life for her 847 friends who didn't actually care. Then there was my brother, Devin. Golden child, star quarterback in high school, now attending Ohio State on a partial scholarship while my parents covered the rest. He was everything they wanted in a son. Charismatic, athletic, popular. I was the awkward middle child who spent too much time reading and not enough time throwing balls or whatever it is that makes parents beam with pride. My younger sister Emma, 17, was the only one who seemed to exist outside the Devon worship circle. She caught my eye across the table now, her expression somewhere between horrified and furious. "Wait," I said slowly, setting down my fork with deliberate care. "You spent my surgery money on Devon's birthday?" My dad cleared his throat, not quite meeting my eyes. "Son, it's not that simple." "Seems pretty simple to me," I interrupted. "The hospital sent the surgery date. You had the money we've been saving for 2 years, but instead of scheduling my surgery, you threw a party." "It wasn't just a party," my mother said defensively, her voice taking on that shrill tone she used when she knew she was wrong but would die before admitting it. "It was a milestone birthday. I stared at the turkey on my plate, suddenly feeling like I understood exactly how it felt, gutted and roasted. My mother's words kept echoing in my head. He only has one birthday a year. Yeah, well, I only had one spine that needed surgery before it curved so badly I'd look like a question mark by 30, but apparently that was less important than my brother's 21st birthday bash. My name is Marcus Webb. I'm 19 years old, and I've been living with scoliosis since I was 14. It's not the kind that kills you, just the kind that makes every day feel like you're carrying a bag of rocks on one shoulder while someone ties your spine into a pretzel. For the last 2 years, it's gotten worse. Much worse. The doctor said I needed corrective surgery before I turned 20, or I'd be dealing with chronic pain for the rest of my life. Maybe even nerve damage. Small stuff, really. Nothing compared to a birthday party. I lived in a small suburb outside of Cleveland, Ohio, in one of those cookie-cutter houses where everyone pretends everything is perfect. My dad, Richard, worked as a regional manager for some industrial supply company. He made decent money, not rich, but comfortable. My mom, Patricia, was a part-time real estate agent who spent most of her time on Facebook documenting our perfect family life for her 847 friends who didn't actually care. Then there was my brother, Devin, golden child, star quarterback in high school, now attending Ohio State on a partial scholarship while my parents covered the rest. He was everything they wanted in a son. Charismatic, athletic, popular. I was the awkward middle child who spent too much time reading and not enough time throwing balls or whatever it is that makes parents beam with pride. My younger sister, Emma, 17, was the only one who seemed to exist outside the Devon worship circle. She caught my eye across the table now, her expression somewhere between horrified and furious. "Wait," I said, slowly, setting down my fork with deliberate care. "You spent my surgery money on Devon's birthday?" My dad cleared his throat, not quite meeting my eyes. "Son, it's not that simple." "It seems pretty simple to me. The hospital sent the surgery date. You had the money we've been saving for 2 years, but instead of scheduling my surgery, you threw a party." "It wasn't just a party," my mother said defensively, her voice taking on that shrill tone she used when she knew she was wrong but would die before admitting it. "It was a milestone birthday. We rented out that beautiful venue by the lake, had it catered, invited all his friends. 200 people, my dad added, like that justified it. It was important for Devon's networking. Some of those people were his teammates' parents, potential business connections." "Oh, well, if it was for networking," I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. Here I am being selfish about my spine. How inconsiderate of my vertebrae to compete with Devon's LinkedIn profile. Emma snorted into her mashed potatoes. Devon, who had been suspiciously quiet, finally spoke up. "Look, Marcus, nobody said you weren't going to get your surgery. They're just postponing it a bit. My birthday was important, man. I'm only 21 once." I looked at him. Really looked at him. His $200 haircut, his designer watch that my parents bought him for graduation, the casual way he sat there like the world owed him everything and he was just collecting what was due. "You're right," I said quietly. "You're only 21 once, just like I'm only 19 once, with a spine that's deteriorating while we speak. But sure, open bar was definitely the priority." "Don't be dramatic," my mother snapped. "Dr. Morrison said you had until you were 20. Dr. Morrison said I should have the surgery before I turned 20. I turned 20 in 4 months, Mom. 4 months. And that's if we can even reschedule, because apparently orthopedic surgeons who specialize in spinal correction don't just have open slots lying around." The table went silent, except for the sound of my dad's knife scraping against his plate. It was Emma who finally broke it. "How much did the party cost?" My parents exchanged a look. That look, the one that meant the answer was bad. "That's not really your concern, Emma," my dad said. "How much?" I asked, my voice deadly calm. Another silence. Then my mother, quietly, $32,000. The room spun. My surgery cost $28,000 after insurance. They'd spent more than my surgery cost. On a party. A single night of celebrating someone who already had everything handed to him on a silver platter. "So when exactly were you planning to tell me? Before or after my spine fused into a permanent C shape?" "We were going to tell you this weekend," my dad said. "We have a plan to save up again." "How long?" "Well, if we're aggressive about it, maybe 18 months? 18 months? I stood up so fast my chair fell backwards. "I don't have 18 months, Dad. Did you even talk to Dr. Morrison before you made this decision?" The guilty silence was answer enough. I felt something break inside me then. Not my heart, that would be too poetic. It was more like the snap of a rope that had been holding too much weight for too long. The kind of break that doesn't make a loud noise, just a quiet pop that changes everything. "You know what the funny part is?" I said, and I was surprised by how steady my voice sounded. "I actually believed you when you said you were saving that money for me. Every time I was in pain, every time I had to skip school because my back hurt so bad I couldn't sit up, every time I couldn't do normal teenager stuff because I was too busy being in agony, I told myself it was okay because you guys were taking care of it. You were my parents. You had my back." I laughed, and it sounded bitter even to my own ears. No pun intended. "Marcus, please sit down," my mother said. "Let's discuss this rationally." "Rationally? You want to discuss rationality? Okay, let's be rational. You had $28,000 saved. You spent $32,000 on a party you needed camping gear. That means you not only spent my surgery money, but you went into debt to throw my brother a party he didn't even need. How many of those 200 guests does Devin actually talk to anymore? How many of them even remember the party? Devin shifted uncomfortably. Most of them. Name 10. What? Name 10 people who were at your party. Right now. 10 people who were so important that my spine took a backseat to their presence? He couldn't. He sat there, mouth opening and closing like a fish, and he couldn't name 10 people. That's what I thought, I said. So here's what's going to happen. I'm going to go upstairs, and I'm going to call Dr. Morrison's office first thing Monday morning. I'm going to explain the situation and see what can be done. And you three, I pointed at my parents and Devin, are going to figure out how to fix this. Because I'm done being the understanding son. I'm done being the one who sacrifices so Devin can shine. I'm done with all of it. Where are you going? My mother asked as I headed for the stairs. Away from this table before I say something I actually mean. Emma got up and followed me. Behind us, I could hear my mother starting to cry, my father's low voice trying to calm her down, and Devin's, confused, why is everyone mad at me? In my room, Emma sat on my bed while I paced. They're unbelievable, she said. I knew they played favorites, but this is insane. Insane doesn't cover it. I don't even have words for what this is. My phone buzzed. A text from Devin. Dude, come on, don't make this a big deal. They'll save up again. I stared at the message, then at Emma. You know what? They're right about one thing. What's that? It's not that simple. I smiled, and Emma looked nervously because she'd seen that smile before. It was the smile I got when I'd figured out how to solve a problem, and the solution wasn't going to be pretty. Over the next 2 weeks, I did my research. Turns out my parents had taken out a personal loan to cover the extra costs of Devin's party. Turns out Devin's partial scholarship was actually a lot more partial than they'd let on. They were paying nearly $40,000 a year for his school. Turns out my college fund, the one my grandparents had set up for me before they died, had been borrowed from to help cover Devin's freshman year expenses. None of this was illegal, technically. It was just breathtakingly unfair. I also called Dr. Morrison's office. The surgery I'd been scheduled for? The date had passed. They'd sent 3 confirmation requests, all of which my parents had ignored. Getting a new date would take at least 8 months, possibly longer. And with each month that passed, the surgery would become more complicated, more expensive, and more dangerous. I was angrier than I'd ever been in my life. But I'm not the kind of person who yells or throws things. I'm the kind of person who plans. It started with the college applications. See, I'd been accepted to 3 schools, all with decent financial aid packages. I'd been planning to stay local, go to Cleveland State, keep my costs down so I wouldn't be a burden. But one of my acceptance letters was from Berkeley, with a nearly full ride for their computer science program. I turned it down because it felt selfish to move across the country when my parents were sacrificing so much for my surgery. Funny how perspectives change. I accepted Berkeley's offer. They still had my spot available. I'd be leaving in August. Then I called my Aunt Linda, my dad's sister. She'd always been cool, never played the favorite game. I explained the situation, calmly and without drama, just facts. She was silent for a long time after I finished. "Those idiots," she finally said. "Marcus, I'm so sorry. What do you need?" "Information mostly, and maybe a place to stay for winter break." "You've got it." Aunt Linda was a lawyer. More importantly, she was the executor of my grandparents' will. She'd been the one who set up my college fund. And she was very interested to learn that my parents had borrowed from it without proper documentation or my consent, which, since the fund was in my name and I was over 18, was legally questionable. She started making phone calls. I also started documenting everything. Every time my parents complained about money while wearing new clothes or talking about their upcoming cruise. Every time Devin got something expensive just because. Every time they asked me to be understanding or patient or reasonable. I posted about my situation on Reddit, not naming names, just laying out the facts. The response was overwhelming. Thousands of people confirming that no,
I wasn't being dramatic. Yes, this was as messed up as I thought. Some people shared similar stories. Others offered advice. A few offered to help with medical fundraising. That's when I had my best idea. I created a GoFundMe. Not for my surgery, I had other plans for that. The GoFundMe was titled, "Help Me Afford the Surgery My Parents Spent on a Party." I laid out everything. The years of pain, the saved money, the birthday party, the current situation. I included medical documentation, photos of me clearly struggling, copies of the hospital's appointment letters that my parents had ignored. I didn't share it right away. I sat on it for a week, refining the wording, making sure every fact was checkable. Emma helped me with the photos and videos. We were careful, methodical. Then, on Devon's Facebook wall, right under my mother's photo album of his perfect 21st birthday celebration with its 300-plus photos of ice sculptures and premium liquor and a literal fireworks display, I posted the GoFundMe link. Since we're sharing family milestones, here's mine, trying to afford the spinal surgery that was postponed to pay for this party. Any help appreciated. Happy late birthday, bro. The internet is a beautiful, terrible thing when it gets angry. Within 6 hours, the post had been shared 10,000 times. Within 12 hours, the GoFundMe had raised $15,000. Within 24 hours, my mother's real estate company had issued a statement distancing themselves from her personal family matters after dozens of people left reviews calling her heartless. My phone wouldn't stop ringing. I ignored every call from my parents. I did, however, answer when Aunt Linda called. "You brilliant, petty genius! Your parents are losing their minds." Good. The GoFundMe is up to $40,000. People are furious on your behalf. Someone dug up your mom's Facebook posts about family values, and they're getting torn apart in the comments. Your dad's LinkedIn is getting flooded with messages. And Devon? She paused. Devon's having a rough time at school. Define rough. Well, someone shared the post in the Ohio State student groups. His teammates saw it. Apparently, the athletic department is getting calls. Nothing official will happen, but the court of public opinion is not being kind. I should have felt guilty. I didn't. My parents showed up at my door 3 days later. I'd been staying at my friend Jake's house, avoiding them. But I'd come back to pack more clothes, and there they were, looking like they'd aged 5 years in a week. "We need to talk," my dad said. "No, we really don't." "Marcus, please," my mother's voice cracked. "This has gotten out of hand. People are saying terrible things. Your brother is being harassed. My business is suffering. Your dad's boss called him in for a meeting. And you need to take down that GoFundMe and post an apology explaining this was all a misunderstanding." I actually laughed. A misunderstanding? Which part? The part where you spent my surgery money, or the part where you didn't tell me? We made a mistake. We admit that. But this public humiliation isn't the answer. You're our family. Family. I tasted the word. You know, I've been thinking about that word a lot lately. What it means. Because I thought family meant looking out for each other, protecting each other, making sacrifices for each other. But apparently it actually means one person gets everything while another person's spine slowly collapses. Thanks for the clarification. "We'll pay for your surgery," my mother said desperately. "We'll figure it out. We'll take out another loan." With what credit? From what I hear, you're pretty maxed out on the party loan. They both flinched. Here's what's actually going to happen. That GoFundMe, it's already more than covered my surgery. In fact, it's covered my surgery, my moving expenses to Berkeley, and set me up with a nice emergency fund. The extra money, I'm donating it to a charity that helps kids with scoliosis whose families can't afford treatment. In Devon's name, actually. I thought that was a nice touch. "Berkeley?" my mother whispered. "You're moving to California?" August 15th. Oh, and Aunt Linda wanted me to tell you that she's filed the paperwork to investigate the unauthorized withdrawal from my college fund. You'll probably want to get a lawyer for that. A different lawyer, not her. My dad's face went red. That money was for family expenses. That money was designated for my education with specific legal parameters. Parameters you violated. But hey, I'm sure a judge will be very understanding about how you needed it for Devin's beer pong tournament or whatever. You're really going to sue your own parents? My mother asked, tears streaming down her face.
No, Aunt Linda is handling it as executor of the estate. I'm just the beneficiary who was stolen from. Small distinction, but legally important. Everything we did for this family, my dad said. No, Dad. Everything you did for Devin. There's a difference. You just never bothered to notice because it was easier not to. Devin's car pulled into the driveway then. Perfect timing. He got out, saw all of us standing there, and his expression went carefully neutral. Great, family meeting without me, he tried to joke. How's school? I asked pleasantly. His jaw tightened. Fine. Really, because I heard your coach had some questions about your family's financial priorities, something about character and values, and whether someone who benefits from his brother's suffering is really captain material. That's not fair, Devin said, but his voice was shaky. I didn't know that we're going to spend your surgery money. They didn't tell me. But you knew they were spending way too much on your party. You knew they were struggling financially. You knew I needed surgery, and you didn't ask a single question because you didn't want to know the answer. That's not ignorance, Devin. That's willful blindness. And honestly, that might be worse. He looked at our parents, waiting for them to defend him. They didn't. They couldn't. The GoFundMe stays up. The lawsuit proceeds. And in August, I'm leaving for Berkeley. You three can go back to pretending everything is perfect, but you'll do it without me. Emma's coming with me, by the way. What? All three of them said in unison. Emma's car pulled up. She'd been waiting around the corner. She got out with a huge smile. Yep, Marcus helped me apply to Berkeley too. Early admission. I got in. Full scholarship. We're getting an apartment together. She walked over and stood next to me. Turns out, when you actually support someone's dreams instead of just one person's, amazing things happen. My mother started crying harder. My dad just stood there looking broken. Devin stared at the ground. This is what you wanted, right? For me to be independent? To not be a burden? Congratulations. You got your wish. I'll send you my new address for Christmas cards, though I won't hold my breath waiting for them. I walked past them to my car, Emma following. As I pulled out of the driveway, I looked back one last time. They were still standing there, frozen, finally understanding the weight of their choices. My phone buzzed. A message from Dr. Morrison's office. They had had a cancellation and could fit me in for surgery in 3 weeks if I could make it work. The GoFundMe had more than covered it. I scheduled it immediately. 3 weeks later, Emma drove me to the hospital. Aunt Linda met us there. My surgery was successful. 6 hours, 2 metal rods, 12 screws, and a completely realigned spine. When I woke up, they were both there, smiling. My parents had sent flowers. No card, no visit, just flowers. I had them donated to the children's ward. 6 months later, I was in Berkeley, pain-free for the first time in 5 years. My GPA was 3.9. Emma was thriving in her pre-law program. We had a tiny apartment near campus that we had decorated with posters and cheap furniture and laughter. The lawsuit settled quietly. My parents paid back the college fund with interest. They really couldn't afford it, and I knew they'd taken out another loan. I didn't feel bad about it. Devin transferred schools after his coach quietly suggested he might be happier elsewhere. He was at a smaller state school now, paying his own way with student loans. My parents couldn't afford to help him anymore.
My mother's real estate career never quite recovered. My dad was still at his job, but the story had made enough rounds that his reputation took a hit. I got a message from Devin once. "I'm sorry, I really didn't know, but I should have asked. You were right." I left it on read for 2 weeks before responding, "Thanks. I hope you figure out what kind of person you want to be." He never replied, but I saw on Emma's Instagram that he'd started volunteering at a children's hospital. Maybe he was learning, maybe not. Either way, it wasn't my problem anymore. On Thanksgiving, my first one in California, Emma and I invited Aunt Linda and a bunch of our new friends over. We cooked a chaotic, imperfect dinner and laughed until our sides hurt. My phone rang once, my mother's number. I let it go to voicemail and didn't check it. Later, as we were cleaning up, Emma raised her glass of sparkling cider. To the best revenge, living well and leaving them behind. I clinked my glass against hers, standing straight and tall and pain-free. I'll drink to that. And I did. Thanks for listening. If this story resonated with you, drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories reach around the world. And hey, if you've ever dealt with family favoritism or had to stand up for yourself when no one else would, share your country or state below. Sometimes just knowing we're not alone in these struggles makes all the difference. Your story matters too.